that President Trump interview I've been telling you about on CBS 60 Minutes has just dropped, and the president has been speaking about a litany of topics, not least what happened last night and the assassination attempt on him at the Hilton in DC, the security of which has been called into question. And will he hold the dinner again? Of course, he pledged to hold it within 30 days. Well, he's also spoken about something I mentioned a bit earlier in the show, which is the language from certain sects of the political spectrum. And he's told CBS that the Democrats' language in particular here in America has been dangerous. Take a listen.
Is there something that you as president can do? What can be done to change the trajectory?
Well, you go back 20 years, 40 years, 100 years, 200 years, 500 years. It's always been there. People are assassinated, people are injured, people are hurt. And I'm not sure that it's any more now than there was. I do think that the hate speech of the Democrats, much more so, is very dangerous. I really think it's very dangerous for the country.
And in the past few moments, former President Barack Obama has taken to social media site X to weigh in. He's released a statement. He says, although we don't yet have the details about the motives behind last night's shooting at the White House Correspondents' dinner, it's incumbent upon all of us to reject the idea that violence has any place in our democracy. It's also a sobering reminder of the courage and sacrifice that US Secret Service agents show every day. I'm grateful to them and thankful that the agent who was shot is going to be okay. I'm joined now by communications consultant who works for President Obama's campaigns, Spencer Critchley. Spencer, great to see you again on The Late Show Live. Thanks for coming back. Your take on what we saw last night, and indeed the president's new comments there with CBS about political language, and he blames those on the left and the Democrats.
Well, first of all, what we saw last night was awful, and there should be no partisan component to that judgment whatsoever. You know, I think that those of us who are lucky enough to be born and raised in a democracy, in many ways, it's as if we were born rich. It's very hard not to be spoiled under those circumstances, and we often don't appreciate what an incredible gift that is. And at the most basic level, the alternative to a functioning democracy is violence. And when we see violence erupting within a democracy, we have to, all of us, no matter where we are politically, we have to reject it in the strongest possible terms. In a democracy, you have the people ruling, and you have under the rule of law and a constitution. And all of the alternatives to that involve the use of force to coerce people, often extremely violent use of force. And so that's the first line of defense against democracy. And we all have to be careful not to resort to a partisan take on this and say, well, you know, the left is worse at this or the right is worse at that. We all have to start with just utterly rejecting it, as I'm not surprised to see former President Obama did. That's absolutely typical of him.
Yeah, I agree with you. It happens on both sides. I would argue, though, there's no point arguing about it, but I would argue we see it more from the left. But the likes of President Trump himself, I would say, has been guilty of it in recent weeks. Hang on, let me finish, Spencer.
No,
let me finish.
No. I'm not going to go down that road, but you don't
know what I was going to say, Spencer, so there's no point interrupting.
You say that it comes more from the left.
You say it comes more exercised about what I'm saying if you'd let me finish.
More from the left. I'm sorry, you're saying it comes more from the left. President Trump organized and incited an attempted overthrow of the United States government at the end of his last presidency, and then pardoned all 1,600 of the people who, many of them extremely violently, attempted to carry that out.
I was just going to talk about Trump before you interrupted.
It's only one example of his not just encouragement of violence, but his celebration of violence. But even against him, it's utterly unacceptable to use any form of violence against him or anybody in his government or anybody really in a democracy.
Yeah, before you interrupted, Spencer, I was going to get on to President Trump. I was going to say in recent weeks alone, he's talked about very stupid, clumsy language, talking about wiping out civilization. So I'm putting the blame on, again, I argue, predominantly the left, but it happens on the right as well, and with President Trump. He needs to sort that kind of stuff out. Have you got any concerns about the Secret Service? Because again, I still don't understand how this guy was allowed to get into the Hilton, check in, and try and breach the only line of defense towards the president.
Yeah, I'm afraid I have very serious concerns, and I say that as somebody who has traditionally had a deep appreciation for them. It's hard not to. You know, I've stood around for hours with Secret Service agents at Obama events and other events, and, you know, in my opinion, they were heroic and also, from everything I could see, extremely competent, just calm professionals willing to lose their lives at a moment's notice if necessary on behalf of whoever they were protecting, however they felt about that person politically. And so I was nothing but impressed with them when I dealt with them. But there have been several just really outstanding failures, unfortunately, by the Secret Service. Going back years now, in 2011, somebody fired shots at the White House and struck it. This was when Obama was president, but he wasn't home, although one of his daughters was, and so was his mother-in-law. And the Secret Service didn't know that any shots had been fired until I think it was 4 days later when somebody noticed the bullet marks on the bulletproof glass in the windows. There have been other cases with, you know, the attempt on President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, that led to the firing of the then Secret Service director. Unfortunately, it looks like that was entirely justified. That looked like another huge security failure. And this event last night, now I'm not a security expert, but I don't know if you have to be to imagine if you were in charge of security for an event like that, would you not be thinking, okay, if I were an assassin seeking to assassinate the president or these other leaders, how might I do it? And one way you might do it is check into the hotel where the event is happening. The whole idea of holding that event at a hotel strikes me as insane. It's been going on for years, but I think it's a crazy idea.
Yeah, well, I guess off the back of this, President Trump, even John Fetterman, the Democrat from Philly, is saying, build the ballroom. This is why he needs the ballroom, apparently. Just a very quick word on that, Spencer.
Well, first of all, this was the White House Correspondents Association, not the White House itself or the U.S. government who organized this event. So they're the ones who hold responsibility for this, although overriding that is the Secret Service's responsibility to protect the president and others no matter where an event happens. This kind of event presumably would not be held at that ballroom. I think the ballroom is a whole other boondoggle. Perhaps we don't have time for this time, although if you want to talk about it, I'd be happy to.
Nah, you're right. Let's save it for next week, Spencer. Thank you, though. Appreciate you being with me again. Spencer Critchley, former communications consultant, current communications consultant who did formerly work on Barack Obama's presidential campaign. Thank you, Spencer.